Welcome into the Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. My name is Andrew Sharp. We'll be talking everything Denver sports and beyond. Please like and subscribe if you are a sports fan like me. Let's do this. Welcome into the Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. My name is Andrew Sharp. The Denver Broncos clinched final playoff spot. It's the 7th seed in the 2024 NFL playoffs, somewhere they have not been since Super Bowl 50. It's been a long 8 years since the Broncos last made the postseason, and they're able to do it in front of their home fan base, playing against a lot of backup players with the Chiefs. Broncos never in doubt, up 14-0 after the first quarter, continued to dominate the Chiefs on both sides of the ball. It was 24-0 at halftime. At one point, ballooned all the way up to 31-0 in the third quarter. Carson Wentz, who I was a little nervous about might play well, did not have a good game. He showed why he is essentially a backup, and his career as an NFL starter is probably not going to happen. And the Broncos really, it was as much about a victory in front of their home fans, clinching a final playoff spot, and celebrating their birth into the postseason. Lest we forget, Broncos had the second longest playoff drought in the NFL. The only team left with a longer streak of not making the NFL postseason are the New York Jets, who have not made playoffs since 2009. Hard to believe. But Broncos come away with a victory in their final game. We're here to celebrate it. We're here to talk about it. We're here to get into it. There's a lot to cover because not only are the Broncos headed to the postseason, but they have finished the regular season in the 2024 NFL calendar year. In my Broncos preview prediction pod, I went through every game of the Denver Broncos in the 2024 NFL season. I had the Broncos finishing with a 10-7 record, clinching a playoff spot in the AFC. And the Broncos went 10-7, clinching the final playoff spot in the AFC. Seeding at this point is not what the Broncos were playing for. The Broncos were playing for development of a young team and to break the 8-year streak. So we're going to go through a little bit today. I did not have some of the games correct, but I had the overall record correct. Seattle, I had them losing, they lost. Pittsburgh, I had them winning, they lost. They so did 0-2, which is also something to be celebrated because 0-2 is a little easier to come back to, I should say, come back from, with the 17 game schedule, as opposed to 16 to make the playoffs, but your odds are still against you at 0-2. So Broncos have their backs up against the wall, heading to Tampa Bay to play a good Tampa Bay squad in Tampa, early East Coast kickoff, and they won that game. Looking back, to be honest, I still think it's probably their most pivotal game, even though it's against an NFC opponent. I think it is the game because they played so well when I really was like, whoa, okay, we might have something here. Because Tampa, by the way, won their division. They won their division. They could easily make the NFC title game this year, vying for Super Bowl. And the Broncos won. And that was Tampa's home opener as well. So, key victory. They then stayed on the East Coast, hung out in West Virginia, and went and played a sloppy, rain-filled mess against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Jets turned out to be a pretty mediocre to terrible team this year, but nonetheless, they won that game. So 2 road wins. I had them at that point at 2-2. Actually, I had them at 1-3 because I thought they'd lose that. I'd take it back. And they won that. So, one of them I got wrong. I had them hosting the Raiders. Predicted a win. They did win. At home against the Chargers, I had them winning this game, but they lost that game. And unfortunately, they were swept by the Los Angeles Chargers this year. One of the main reasons why the Broncos are a 7 seed, and not a 6 seed in the AFC. But here we are. The other pivotal game at New Orleans, which only gave me a pause because playing the road Thursday games are usually pretty hard, but New Orleans turned out to be even worse than most prognosticators have them this year. I predicted a win. The Broncos did win that. Carolina at home, I predicted a win. They won. But Carolina has looked better. Actually, Carolina has played a lot better ever since playing and losing to the Broncos. Going to Baltimore, had that as a loss. They did lose that game. Going to Kansas City, had that as a loss. They lost that game. The Broncos are not in Kansas City, Baltimore, and we're going to talk about that a little later. Buffalo's class yet. They're not. That's okay. Those teams have solid playoff resumes with established quarterbacks who've been in the league 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in some cases. So Broncos are not in that tier yet, and that's okay. At home against Atlanta, I predicted a win. They won. At Las Vegas, I predicted a win. They won. Cleveland at home, a game I intended. I had them winning that game. They won. So at that point, my prediction record is 8-5. They were 8-5. So 9 of the 13 I had right at that point. Coming off the bye, pivotal part of their schedule, I had them winning at home against the Indianapolis Colts. They won that game. At the Los Angeles Chargers, they lost that game. I had the predicted as a loss. I'd say that is probably the most disappointing loss of the season because the Broncos were in control of the game. They had the lead, and Sean Payton, for reasons I'm still unclear on, decided to not run the ball for an entire second half. Talked about it a lot on the Reaction Pod. That's one where it doesn't matter now, but that's one that could have really had this team not made the playoffs. That would be the one I would circle as the coulda, woulda, shoulda game, for sure. At Cincinnati, that was a loss. And Cincinnati, by the way, we're going to talk about them a little bit later. Cincinnati's point differential is terrible because their defense is awful, just awful. And they essentially wasted an MVP caliber season from Joe Burrow and an amazing year from Jamar Chase, and they are sitting at home this Sunday. And as predicted, Chiefs rested starters. Chiefs had nothing to play for in the Broncos game on Sunday. I predicted that as a win. The Broncos indeed won that game quite handily. I didn't think it would be 38-0, but I'll take some style points at this point. End of the season. Broncos essentially used it as a glorified scrimmage / get right game, which I have no issue with whatsoever, especially for a young team. More reps, more looks, more plays, all about it. So the Broncos predicted record 10-7, actual record 10-7, and a spot in the 2024 NFL playoffs. I'm very happy about that. And the Broncos also, we looked at the division, ended up finishing about where I thought they would. Only thing I was a little surprised on was the Chargers were so formidable in Jim Harbaugh's first year with the Chargers. Chiefs finished 15-2. I had them going 14-3, but 15-2 to win the division. Number 1 seed in the conference, only team with the first round bye. Los Angeles Chargers 11-6, 5-3 at home, 6-3 away, 4-2 the division against the second place. They were also better in the conference at 8-4 than the Broncos. And their point differential was 101 points. Funny thing is, the Chiefs' point differential is only 59 for the whole season. So Chiefs were winning tight games all year based on their defense and Mahomes' playmaking ability. But this is not the same Kansas City Chiefs offense that we're used to seeing. Denver Broncos finished 10-7, 6-2 at home, which is great, especially for the home fans. Really get that mile high advantage back. 4-5 on the road for a rookie quarterback. We'll take that. 3-3 the division. Again, the loss to the Chargers and in LA could have easily been 4-2, but here we are, 6-6 in the conference. But the key, as I predicted, Sean Payton's knowledge of the NFC South. 4-0 against NFC teams. So wins are wins. Don't apologize for winning. Never apologize for winning in pro sport. And coming in the rear, the Las Vegas Raiders, who just fired their coach today, Antonio Pierce. They finished the year 4-13, 2-6 at home, 2-7 away. They did not win an AFC divisional game. They didn't win. They didn't beat the Broncos, Chiefs, or Chargers once. They finished 3-9 in the conference. Their point differential is a minus 125. And given that they fired their coach today, or whoever decides to put themselves through the misery of coaching the Las Vegas Raiders, will be the fourth coach they've had in the last few years. And Mark Davis, who's considered one of the poorest owners in the NFL, poor being a relative term, will now be paying for his fourth NFL coach. In the 2024 season, the Denver Broncos defense rebounded back to form. They had an off year last year, but they came back to where they had been a couple years ago. Top 3 unit, top 4 unit, however you want to slice things. But the Broncos offense was a work in progress. Broncos definitely were lacking skill position players. It was clear to most people I listened to and observed to, and I went one time at training camp, that this Broncos team did not have that many special weapons. And it definitely panned out that way. The Bronco team had basically no to little running game with a rookie quarterback, which I thought they were going to have to run the ball. I talked extensively in the preseason about how Sean Payton believed in the run game, had it with Alvin Kamara, had it with Mark Ingram. They always had good run games in New Orleans. The problem with the Broncos is their running back situation is not very good. The offensive line is solid, but needs some reworking and different pieces. And so they were able to run the Sean Payton offense and piecemeal this all together. But it's unbelievable the fact there's only one player on the Broncos through 17 games finished with totals of 1,000 yards. And that would be Cortland Sutton, who finished with 81 catches for 1,081 yards. That's it. The next behind him, Marvin Mims, who just got named to a Pro Bowl as a punt returner, though. Special team specialist, we'll put him that way. And Marvin Mims had a good year. As I predicted for the Broncos to have success, he was going to have to step up and contribute. And to Marvin's credit, he did. He had half of what Cortland Sutton's total offense production was, with 503 total purpose yards. Devon Bailey, who spent some time not playing due to injury and then getting late into the rotation, still a young player, 475 all-purpose yards. Javonte Williams, 346. Very low numbers for Javonte. Lil Jordan Humphrey, 293. Troy Franklin, 263. Adam Trautman, he's a tight end, less than 200 for the whole season in receiving yards. So Broncos were able to piece this together, but I tell you what, there wasn't a whole lot of special on the offense. There wasn't. There were special games. The quarterback made it work, but this team lacks playmakers. Good thing is there's lots and lots of special players coming out this year in college, especially for wide receivers and running backs. Rushing the ball, Javonte Williams, whole season, 513 yards. So not a single 1,000-yard rusher on this team. Dylan Laughlin, 496. Bo Nix was the third leading rusher on the team. He actually outrushed Audric Estime. Now, part of that's because Sean Payton wasn't running the ball as much as I would like. I've documented that the whole season. But regardless, the fact that Bo Nix had more rushing yards than two of the main Bronco running backs is pretty remarkable. So it's a work in progress. But you know what? Some of these players, sorry, they're not going to be here in 2 years. They better step up. Javonte Williams is an afterthought at this point. I'm not sure about Julian McLaughlin. We'll see. Troy Franklin, for his going to college with Bo Nix at Oregon, I'm leaning towards bust at this point. So, and some of the other guys, they're just guys. They're just guys. I don't know where they're going to be. The other player that really surprised me this year that did absolutely nothing, coming from the Detroit Lions as a free agent, was Josh Reynolds. I know he had some injury problems, but wow. And of course, lastly, I have to go ahead and mention my bugaboo, Greg Dulcich, who's already cut from the team, had a miserable year, basically couldn't get on the field, and is no longer with the organization. So, 3 I would keep. They're definitely going to keep around Audrey Esme because he's still a young player. Marvin Mims. And definitely on the up with all of that would be Devon Vele. On the outs, I don't know. Obviously, Greg Dulcich's already gone. Tyler Batty may be on the way out. And I would say probably little Jordan Humphrey might be on the bubble. He's a Sean Payton guy, but the production is just not there. So, you guys to see if they keep, if they won't. And we'll be looking towards the Broncos making quite a bit of moves with the NFL draft and free. Looking ahead to Sunday's matchup against the Buffalo Bills, team the Broncos have not played in a few years. Team the Broncos did not play this year due to their schedule. Broncos head to Buffalo, play Buffalo Bills. But Broncos are playing with house money. The Broncos are a young team. There have been talking heads this week that have been voiced their displeasure of watching the Broncos play. Whatever. Just win. No one cares. And the reason why I say that also is there's no pressure on the Broncos to win this game. Broncos have already had a great year. If they go on the road and upset the Bills, that will be the upset of wildcard weekend. And it would be amazing to see the Broncos pull that off in this town. Do I think they're going to do it? No, I don't. I think it's too tall a task. But I will say this, I'm going to go through it right now. All of the pressure is on the Buffalo Bills. There is no pressure on the Broncos. If the Broncos lose, this is a young team that no one thought was going to make the playoffs, with paying a quarterback $35 million to not be around. So, let's go through what it's like for the Buffalo Bills in their recent playoff history. When we talk about the Buffalo Bills lack of postseason success goes back to my childhood. Buffalo Bills in the 90s made 4 straight consecutive Super Bowls and lost them all. If you haven't ever seen it, ESPN 30 for 30 documentary called The Four Falls of Buffalo, probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite sports documentary, certainly that ESPN has put out, where they go through and talk about each season that the Buffalo Bills came up short in the Super Bowl and those teams and what the fallout was for that. And unfortunately for the Bills are starting to mirror a little bit of that in the Josh Allen era. This is a Bills team that was a mere 13 seconds away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2021-22 divisional round. Of course, the Chiefs were going to host the AFC title game, in which it was Joe Burrow and the Bengals who would turn around and do the same thing to the Chiefs 1 week later, coming back to win that game. But they've had some pretty disastrous playoff losses in Buffalo. Ever since Josh Allen got there, he's established himself as a MVP favorite. And the Buffalo Bills have won a lot of games since he arrived. But they've had some pretty epic playoff losses. They have not made a Super Bowl and I'm going to say the years. That way we don't get confused because we play the regular season in 1 year and the postseason in the other. 2019-2020, Buffalo Bills, after missing the playoffs for basically almost a decade, made it as 5 seed in Josh Allen's second year. They had a 16, I'd forgotten about this, I had to do a little research on this one. They had a 16-0 lead over the Houston Texans, and Houston ended up losing 22-19. Josh Allen certainly played good enough to win, the team did not. Lost on a field goal in overtime. At that point, for Buffalo's 6th consecutive playoff loss since their last playoff win, which was December of 95. So we're talking 2020 to 95, 15 years. They still hadn't won a playoff game. By the way, in that time period, the Broncos have won 3 Super Bowls. 3 Super Bowls and played in a couple more. 2020-21 season. Now, Buffalo's established as a very good team. They're not a 5 seed anymore, they're the 2 seed. Easily make it to the AFC title game versus Kansas City in Kansas City. They take an early 9-0 lead before the Chiefs offense took over in the second quarter. Buffalo did not respond. Ended up getting blown out by the Chiefs 38-24. Chiefs team would actually go on and lose to Tom Brady of the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. 2021, 2022 season, lost the miracle, I would say probably still the one that will, if they do not win a Super Bowl with Josh Allen, which I think that's a little premature to say, but these seasons add up. And Josh Allen plays very physical. This is the miracle 13-second game, which the Chiefs came back after basically trailing most of the game and ended up losing this game. There are articles written about this game that are quite interesting, and I'm going to quote one of them in just a second. It's always fun to go back and relive some of these things. I watch these games, but because this is the Buffalo Bills history, not the Broncos history, I remember a lot of it, but I'm not as quite as well versed with it. It's funny reading this article back. This is an article on ESPN, still up. You can find it, dated from 2022, right after they lost the game. And Chiefs end up ending the Bills season 42-36. Buffalo has yet to win a road playoff game under coach Sean McDermott. This is at the time, of course. 0-4. Their goal of reaching the Super Bowl and getting past the Chiefs will have to wait at least another year. The Bills spent the offseason preparing to beat Kansas City after losing in last year's AFC title game at Arrowhead. This time, the game ended in devastating fashion on the first drive of overtime after the teams scored all 4 times in the final 2 minutes of regulation. It was bananas. If you are a sports fan, well, I would think you watched it. If you have not, highly recommend it. There are ways of getting to that. Buffalo, brutal loss. 25 points scored in the last 2 minutes of regulation are the second most of regulation any game in the Super Bowl era. So basically, if their defense had gotten one stop, they could have slipped by the Chiefs that day, but they did not. And so we continue with the Buffalo Bills playoff history. 2022-2023, barely squeaked by the Miami Dolphins at home 34-31. Next week in the divisional round, get absolutely boat raced by the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals are a good club, but Bengals got on top 14-0, never looked back. Bills' offense was slow to start. This one is definitely more on Josh Allen than any of the others because he just never got going. The game was non-competitive, and that Bengal team would go on and lose the Super Bowl, to the Los Angeles Rams in a game they were definitely in, could have won. and the Cincinnati Bengals emerged as a true Super Bowl contender along with the Chiefs. It's really been Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals for the last 5 years. 2023, 2024, about this time last year. Bills are again the 2 seed, with KC being the 3 seed this time. Kansas City had some offensive struggles last year. Their defense was excellent, but they lost some games down the stretch, which forced them to go on the road. Ravens were the 1 seed. KC went on the road, beat the Bills 27-24 in Buffalo, in a game where the Buffalo Bills had every opportunity over and over again to finally get over the hump, because of course instead of having to go to Kansas City, this time Kansas City has to come to them. No excuses. This is the time to win this game. Buffalo does not. This was the 3rd loss to the Chiefs in the playoffs. So the Chiefs aren't just torturing the Broncos and the Chargers and the Raiders. Chiefs have been torturing other teams in the NFL as well, because the Chiefs went ahead and went on the road to Baltimore and won the AFC title game, making Lamar Jackson look timid and weak, and on their way to beating yet again the San Francisco 49ers for yet another Super Bowl title, something they had done 5 years previous. That marks KC ended up winning. Buffalo missed a field goal that was slightly reminiscent of the 90s missed field goal by Scott Norwood. In my youth watching the Super Bowl, I do remember that kick. Buffalo's 3rd consecutive exit in the divisional round. So they made that AFC title game early in their Josh Allen era. They have not made it back to an AFC title game since. These games are hard. With 58 regular season wins in the last 5 years, the loss also tied them with the New Orleans Saints from 2017 to 2021 with the most regular season wins. Wait, Sean Payton. See how this all circles around? Most wins in a 5-year stretch for a team to not make a Super Bowl. This season, the Buffalo Bills finished as the 2 seed. Oh wait, we just talked about that. 2 seed again with a record of 13-4, and again the 2 seed. I kind of think at this point maybe they really do need to put everything they have into getting the 1 seed and hosting all these playoff games in Buffalo where it's cold. Problem is, there's this thing called the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes who keep getting in their way of even doing that. So the Bills, all of the pressure is on the Bills. I just went through all of it. The Broncos don't have anything like that kind of playoff history in the last 5 years, which is fine. We know what the last 5 years have been. The last 8 years, frankly, have been a disaster. Buffalo has been knocking on the door. So there's no pressure on the Broncos. I just outlined basically the last 5-year history of the Buffalo Bills. All of the pressure is on the Bills. And if they lose this game and the Broncos go to Buffalo and win, there's going to be serious ramifications in Buffalo. My outlook and expectations for the Broncos heading in 2024 season is my belief in Bo Nix. Bo Nix, for people who do not follow football, was the 6th quarterback taken in the 2024 NFL draft. Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears, was number 1. Jaden Daniels, Washington Commanders, number 2. I saw Jaden Daniels pass for an NCAA record at LSU in person. Incredible player. Drake May was number 3 for the New England Patriots. Michael Penix Jr., who's finally gotten some playing time after Kirk Cousins clearly has lost his step, played some games for the Atlanta Falcons. J.J. McCarthy, unfortunately for J.J., won my Michigan Wolverines a national title, but got hurt early in the NFL preseason and was out for the year. And Bo Nix, number 6, rookie quarterback taken this last year. As far as actual games played, Jaden Daniels played all 17, Bo Nix played all 17, Caleb Williams played all 17, Drake May played 13. as the Patriots stupidly decided not to play him early in the year. But in terms of touchdowns, Bo Nix, number one of all those guys, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. I'd have been thrilled if Bo Nix had thrown 22 touchdowns. 29 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels was second. Jaden Daniels also had a wonderful year. Yards. Oh, wait, that's still Bo Nix. 3,775 yards. In his rookie year, he almost threw for 4,000 yards. Love it. Keep going through it. Completion percentage. And it's a little deceiving because some guys played more, some played less. Bo Nix, 66.3% completion percentage. Very good. And Bo Nix had more interceptions. He had some rookie type games, but he also was throwing the ball, down the field. Higher risk throws lead to more interceptions. And quarterback rating, which isn't everything, he finished with a 93 quarterback rating for the year. So a very successful season for Mr. Bo Nix. I've been talking about him the entire year. And honestly, he's been better than even I thought he was as a rookie. He really is. He puts in some time with Sean Payton in the offseason. Have a growth year from year 1 to year 2, which is typically where most NFL players take the biggest leap. Broncos draft some better skill positions, as I outlined earlier in the video. Broncos skill position guys are not very good. A lot of these guys, they're not going to be on the Broncos in the next 2 or 3 years. So between free agency and the draft, the Broncos will be bringing in more weapons for Bo Nix. And I anticipate Bo Nix to take yet another step, solidifying himself as the Broncos franchise quarterback. There have been a few seasons in the last few years of this 8-year drought stretch where the Broncos have had 1 Pro Bowler on the entire roster. This year they have 3. Cornerback Pat Surtain, outside linebacker pass rusher Nick Benito, and Marvin Mims as more of a special teams returner, which is fine. Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper. First time the Broncos have had 2 players scored 10 or more sacks since Von Miller and Bradley Chubb in 2018. Very happy for all of these guys. Very happy. Nick Benito was definitely the surprise of this team. I knew that he would be good. I did not think that Nick Benito would manage to get himself into the top 3 in the NFL in sacks. He finished with 13.5 sacks. Trey Henderson of the Cincinnati Bengals, ironically, because the Cincinnati Bengals, the rest of their back end of their defense is awful. But he ended up leading the league in sacks this year at 17.5. Myles Garrett, future Hall of Famer for the Cleveland Browns, at 14. Nick Benito with 13.5. And Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper had a great year. Still ranked number 12 in the entire league at 10.5. So the Broncos had 2 double-digit sack guys, 2 guys who made it in the top 12. And if you don't have to scroll that much further down, Mr. Zach Allen, who really isn't a sack specialist at all, he's more of a interior lineman, managed to finish with 8.5, sacks on the year, ranked number 26. So the Broncos had 3 players in the top 26 in sacks, which is tremendous. Along with Pat Surtain, playing at a all-pro level on the back end. Broncos had a little bit of an issue throughout the year. I've talked about it with cornerback Riley Moss being hurt. They don't have as much depth for that position. But overall, this Broncos defense, right back to form, depending on which metrics you look at. They're ranked anywhere from the 3rd to 4th best defense in the league, which is amazing. And certainly can help this Bronco team win this year, hopefully in Buffalo on Sunday. The Buffalo Bills went 14-3 this season. I want to take a little closer look at the games that they lost. They lost 20-23 to the then 4-1 Houston Texans. A game in which there is a formula to beating this Bills team, which is containing Josh Allen, running the ball for at least as many, if not more times than the Bills do. The Houston Texans ran the ball 28 times, 94 yards. Houston's not a great running team, but they also had time of possession, 33 minutes, 10 seconds to the Bills, 26:50. I imagine the Broncos hopefully could play some sort of formula like that, even if it's not a lot of yards gained on every Bronco rush. It's a formula. Sean Payton, don't get fancy. Don't get cute. Run the ball. Josh Allen, to his credit, has probably had the most mistake-free football. I almost said mistake-free football of his NFL career this year. But those old habits can get reactivated. Give him some looks he's not used to. Create some pressure he isn't expecting. It's going to be cold in Buffalo. The ball is going to be hard. Maybe he doesn't quite have the grip that day. Overthrows a few, underthrows a few. Broncos have been picking quarterbacks off left and right all season long, both through pressure and cornerback linebacker play. Nick Benito, case in point. This Buffalo team, all the pressure's on them. Their third loss was a total shootout in a dome against the Rams. A bit of an outlier game. Buffalo's defense had some major injuries at the time, played a terrible game. It was just a track meet between the two teams. I do not anticipate a blowout either way on this game on Sunday. I know the Broncos are heavy underdogs, but I really don't think it's that type of game. And I do think the Broncos have a shot at winning this game. I would say it's in the 30 to 40% range. But Broncos, play your game. You're not where the Bills are yet, and that's okay. Win ugly. It's been working for you all year. Don't get in a beauty contest with Josh Allen. Force any mistakes. Run the ball. Limit your mistakes and penalties. You just might be the talk of the NFL universe come Monday. Anyways, it's been a long pod tonight. I do appreciate everyone who's stuck with me through the 2024 NFL season with the Denver Broncos. Once again, my name is Andrew Sharp, Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. I do appreciate the support very much. And win or lose, I'll be back next week talking about the Broncos. And I hope you join me. Thanks a lot.